That feeling when you walk into a meeting room and nobody is saying a single word, but the air just feels, well, heavy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like you can physically feel that an argument just happened maybe 5 seconds ago.
The classic air is thick enough to cut with a knife scenario.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, for most of us, that is just an uncomfortable moment we try to ignore.
Yeah.
So we can just get down to the agenda.
Put your head down and pretend everything is fine.
Yeah. But imagine if you couldn't ignore it. Imagine if that weather in the room wasn't just background noise, but the primary data stream for your entire existence.
That is a lot to process.
It is.
Yeah.
Imagine walking into a party and knowing exactly who is secretly breaking up, who is incredibly insecure about their outfit, and who is, suppressing a scream entirely.
All before anyone even says hello.
Exactly. And that is the exact profile we are decoding today. We are doing a deep dive into the FSFN, also known as the emotion decoder.
Which is such a fitting name.
It really is. And this comes to us from the Max Energy ME80 personality system, which is what we're using as our source material today.
And the ME80 system is a fantastic framework for this because it's all about energy flow. It looks at how we intake, process, and output energy.
Right, the mechanics of personality.
Exactly. And the FSFN is unique in the system because they essentially function as a high-fidelity translator for the human heart.
A translator is a great way to put it. I was reading through the report earlier, and I just kept thinking about every friend I've ever had who somehow ends up being the unpaid therapist of the group.
Oh, they definitely end up with that job.
But before we get to the therapy bills and all that, let's set the stage here. What are the core identity of the FSFN? How does the ME80 define them?
Well, the report gives them this very evocative core declaration. It says the FSFN gives hidden pain a name and a way out amid storms of emotion.
Gives hidden pain a name. That's powerful.
It is.
It kind of implies that the pain is already there, just lurking, and the FSFN is the one who finally drags it into the light.
Precisely. In the ME80 system, they are classified as an insight-type personality. Now, usually when we hear the word insight, we tend to think of...
Like Sherlock Holmes or something, cold logic, data deductions.
Right, we think of pure logic. But the FSFN applies that exact forensic level of insight to emotion. They're deeply touched by feelings, but they choose understanding as their primary response to the world.
So they aren't just, swimming in feelings for the sake of it. Because I think there is a big stereotype out there that emotional people are just chaotic.
And that is probably the biggest misconception about this profile. The FSFN isn't chaotic at all. Actually, they're the antidote to chaos.
How so?
Well, their core function is to catch the emotion first, which is usually messy and confusing for the rest of us, and then they deconstruct the causality.
They figure out the why.
Right. They ask, why is this feeling here? Where did it come from? They take a vague, confusing sensation and turn it into understandable, bearable language.
They turn the noise into a clear signal.
Yes. And this ties directly into their control mechanism. Their whole philosophy is about providing what the report calls breathing space.
Breathing space.
Because their structural logic operates in parallel. They perceive the emotion, understand it, bear it, and express it all at the same time. By validating a grievance or acknowledging a loss rather than just dismissing it, they actively lower the pressure in the room.
That makes total sense. It's the difference between telling someone to stop crying and asking them what actually hurt them. One just addresses the pressure, but the other actually releases it.
Exactly. You cannot fix a situation by ignoring the emotional reality. You have to look at the global view of the relationship and validate that pain first.
Okay, philosophically, that sounds beautiful.
Yeah.
But I want to understand the actual mechanics of this, because the Max Energy ME80 system breaks this down into an energy matrix, right?
It does, yes. It looks under the hood.
Right, the engine. So we have 4 layers here: the IP, the IQ, the EQ, and the manifestation layer. How does a machine built for feelings actually run? Because usually, feelings and machines do not go together.
They don't usually, but the ME80 system perfectly maps this cognitive architecture. Let's start at the very bottom with the IP layer.
The inner value layer. This is the pilot light, essentially.
Exactly. It is defined as the energy drive activation. For the FSFN, this internal spark is a profound drive to understand. It isn't a passive curiosity. It is an active hunger to make sense of the human condition.
So they aren't just being nosy about your problems.
Not at all. It's a fundamental hardwired need to connect the dots of human behavior. But here is where it gets really fascinating and where some people might get a little tripped up. Let's look at the next layer, which is IQ.
The emotional activation layer. Now, normally IQ means intelligence quotient. We think math, spatial reasoning, logic puzzles.
Right, but in this specific matrix, IQ is defined as experience and verification judgment.
Meaning what, exactly?
It's how you verify reality. Most people verify reality through objective facts, right? Is the sky blue? Yes. But the FSFN verifies reality through emotional resonance.
Wait, hold on. So their internal logic helps them decide what is real based on how a situation feels.
That
sounds
risky.
Yeah, very risky. Doesn't that lead to just making things up? Like, I feel like you're mad at me, therefore it is a fact that you are mad at me.
It definitely can be a risk, and we will get into that when we discuss their shadow blind spot. But for now, think of their IQ layer more like a highly calibrated lie detector.
Okay.
Say you are smiling at me and saying, "Oh, I am so happy for your success." But your micro expressions are tight and the overall vibe is deeply jealous.
I know that vibe.
Right, we all do. And FSFN's IQ layer flashes a massive red light right there. It says data mismatch. The words are false, but the feeling is true.
I see. So their logic is actually processing a massive data set that most of us are just completely ignoring. They're reading the metadata of the entire conversation.
Exactly. They use that acute sensitivity to verify the actual truth of the room. And that data then feeds directly into the third layer, the EQ layer.
The decision calculation layer. So they detected the lie or the hidden sadness. What does the EQ do with that?
It calculates the emotional expression and release. It is the processing center that decides how to handle the data. It asks, do I confront this? Do I offer comfort? Do I crack a joke to break the tension?
And then finally, we hit the top layer, the manifestation layer. This is where the rubber meets the road.
Yes, the energy released outward. For the FSFN, this manifests as that exact active translation we were just talking about. It's the naming of the pain. It is speaking the specific sentence that creates that breathing space for everyone else.
Wow. Okay, so looking at the whole stack together, the IP wants to understand. The IQ detects the emotional truth. The EQ calculates the best way to handle it. And the manifestation layer speaks the words that heal the situation.
You've got it perfectly. When these layers combine, it creates a system designed for extremely acute emotion perception.
Which brings us perfectly to the deep analysis of their inner traits. The ME80 report highlights emotion insight as their defining core trait. And I think the real operative word there is insight.
Yes, because again, they aren't just feeling types, they are investigators.
Right. I know people who are very emotional, but they're just reactive. They yell, they cry, they laugh.
Right.
But the FSFN seems so different. They feel more like emotional architects.
That is a brilliant analogy. Unlike other personality types that rush to solve a problem with a practical to-do list, the FSFN stops and asks what actually happened here. They want the narrative.
They want the root cause.
Yes. The report says something very profound in this section. It notes that once an emotion gains a position, meaning once it is named action and repair, naturally unfold.
I really love that concept of gaining a position. It's like once you finally admit, hey, I'm not actually mad about the dirty dishes, I'm mad that you don't respect my time.
Right.
Suddenly the dishes don't even matter anymore. The noise is gone and we can actually fix the respect issue.
Exactly. They strip away the surface level conflict to find the structural damage underneath. It's like having a human decoder ring. They turn shouting or passive aggressiveness or even silence into a clear, actionable message.
But, and here comes the heavy part of the deep dive, being a human decoder ring sounds absolutely exhausting.
It really is.
I mean, if I had to process every single glitch in the matrix of everyone I interacted with, I don't think I would ever leave my house.
And that leads us right into the shadow blind spot. Every personality system has a cost. And for the FSFN, the shadow is over-resonance.
Over-resonance. That sounds like when you put a microphone too close to a speaker and you get that horrible screeching feedback loop.
That is literally what happens to their nervous system. The report describes their main weakness as understanding too deep, boundaries blur. Because their empathy is running so high, they don't just sympathize with your pain, they internalize it. They take it on as their own responsibility.
So they aren't just listening to your problems, they're actually downloading them onto their own hard drive.
Yes, and it causes a system glitch. The report mentions a very specific mechanism of failure here. It says, unconfirmed emotion cycles repeatedly in mind.
Oh, man. I know this one. This is the classic, did I say something wrong spiral.
It is brutal for them. If an FSFN senses a shift in your mood, maybe you're just tired or you're hungry, but you don't actually say what is bothering you, their brain goes into absolute overdrive trying to decode it.
Why is she quiet? Is she mad at me? Did I offend her?
Exactly. They will replay a completely normal 5-minute interaction dozens of times in their head.
It's like their brain is desperately trying to solve a puzzle, but half the pieces are missing.
And because they verify reality through emotion, that IQ layer we talked about earlier, if the emotional vibe feels off, their entire reality feels unstable. Small, normal frictions get magnified into deep negation.
They start feeling like the entire friendship is collapsing just because of one awkward pause.
Right. And what happens when the pressure crosses a threshold? Because you can only spin that wheel for so long before something breaks.
Yeah, what does happen? Do they just burn out?
They suffer what the report calls a strong emotion rebound.
That sounds dangerous.
It can be. It is the snapping point. The FSFN is normally the patient listener, the incredibly calm one. But when they cross that threshold of over-resonance, they can completely overwhelm themselves and explode. Or, conversely, they just completely shut down and wall off the entire world.
As a defense mechanism against all the noise.
Exactly.
It's a classic beware the anger of a gentle person scenario.
Precisely.
So knowing that they have this massive vulnerability, let's talk about their social relationships. The report titles their role as the understood ones, which honestly sounds a bit ironic given everything you just said.
It does sound ironic, but it refers to their role for other people. In any social circle, they're the ones who make everyone else feel deeply understood. They naturally organize emotion for their friends, making people feel truly seen.
They're the glue. They're the ones you call at 2 a.m. when your life is falling apart.
Yes, because they build trust through deep exchange. But the risk here, and the report is very clear on this, is that because they are such incredibly reliable listeners, their own needs are easily overlooked.
The therapist has no therapist.
Exactly. Friends habitually confide in them, dumping all their trauma and totally forgetting to check if the FSFN is overloaded. They look so composed and analytical about feelings that people just assume they don't need any support.
That feels incredibly lonely. To be the understood one who isn't actually understood by anyone else?
It forces the FSFN to learn a very hard lesson. They have to actively advocate for their own emotional needs because they are just too good at hiding them while revealing everyone else's.
Let's pivot a bit here. We have established that they are high maintenance, but incredibly high reward friends. How does this translate to the business world? Because emotion decoder doesn't usually appear as a skill on a LinkedIn resume. Does this have tangible business value?
Immense value. Honestly, in complex corporate environments, this might be one of the most valuable skill sets you can have. The report defines their professional superpower as an extremely strong emotion analysis capacity.
Okay, let's strip away the corporate speak for a second. What does that actually look like in a boardroom?
Okay, imagine a high-stakes scenario. 2 departments are completely tangled up, a project is stalling, and the managers are just endlessly arguing about budgets or deadlines. The FSFN is the person who realizes the real issue isn't the budget. The real issue is that the design team feels their creative autonomy is being disrespected by the engineering team.
So they spot the ghost in the machine, the hidden human factor that is blocking all the actual logic.
Exactly. They extract the real needs from that complex tangle of relationships. They convert what is just vague dissatisfaction into discussable, solvable problems.
So instead of a team failing because of poor communication, which is a buzzword that means nothing, the FSFN can say, look, sales is hiding data from marketing because they're terrified of being blamed for the Q3 dip.
Boom. Now you have a fixable problem. The report points out that they shift conflict from a state of pure opposition into a state that contains repair and adjustment possibility.
They make the impossible adjustable. That is a serious boss-level skill.
It really is.
So if I am looking to hire an FSFN, or if I am listening right now and I am one, and I'm stuck in some soul-crushing spreadsheet job, what are the recommended professional fields for this type?
The ME80 report highlights 4 specific areas where this energy matrix absolutely thrives.
Hit me with them.
First is the most obvious. Consultation and counseling roles. This means going deep into hearts, providing professional emotional guidance, therapists, executive coaches, things like that.
Total sense.
Second is relationship coordination. This involves deconstructing contradictions and acting as a vital bridge for cross-department cooperation.
The ultimate corporate diplomat.
Yes. Third is emotion insight management. This means roles focused on caring for team dynamics and significantly boosting group cohesion.
And the fourth one?
Organization and team repair. This is a crucial one. Think about handling post-crisis emotional reconstruction and restoring morale after a massive layoff or a company scandal.
Wow. They are literally the disaster response team for company culture.
Exactly. They enter the rubble, name the pain, and help rebuild.
This has been such a fascinating deep dive. I really feel like we've decoded the decoder today.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up, I want to synthesize all this. We've covered the power of naming pain, the engine of their empathy, the danger of that emotional rebound, and the incredible value they bring to broken systems. Is there a gold sentence in the report? A final takeaway?
There is, and it perfectly addresses that shadow side we discussed. The synthesizing thought is this. When emotion decoders learn boundary setting for empathy, converting understanding into action rather than self-consumption, sensitivity no longer becomes just a burden. It becomes a key force stabilizing relationships and repairing systems.
Converting understanding into action rather than self-consumption. That is the key, isn't it?
Right.
Stop just eating the pain. Use it as fuel to fix the system.
Precisely. If you are an FSFN listening to this, your sensitivity isn't a flaw. It is a highly advanced radar system. But you have to learn how to read the screen without internalizing every single blip.
And for everyone else listening, if you have an FSFN in your life, do them a favor and check on them today. Ask them how they're actually doing, and please do not settle for "I'm fine."
Dig a little deeper. They will really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Now, as we mentioned at the top of the show, this entire profile and deep dive was based on the Max Energy ME80 Personality Assessment Report. It is an incredibly detailed framework that goes way beyond just the standard personality types.
It really is a fantastic tool for understanding the physics of your own personality.
Now, if you want to explore your own energy matrix, you can visit their official website at www.maxenergylife.com. Or if you're on Facebook, you can search for the exact terms Max Energy Juning Liang Renzi Beng Liang Ren Dijing Zishu using the Chinese characters for those titles.
Highly recommended if you want to understand how your own energy flows.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep decoding, keep listening, and we will catch you next time.
Goodbye, everyone.